Welcome to State Bar of Michigan's On Balance podcast, where we talk about practice management and lawyer wellness for a thriving law practice with your hosts, Joanne Hathaway and Tish Vincent, here on Legal Talk Network. Take it away, ladies.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the State Bar of Michigan On Balance podcast on Legal Talk Network. This is Tish Vincent. I am the program administrator for the Lawyers and Judge Assistance Program at the State Bar of Michigan. We're recording today's show at the Next Conference in Detroit, Michigan. Joining us now, we have Mary Roush and Dave Leasure. And before we get started, please tell us a little bit about yourselves, and let's start with you, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Roush with the State Court Administrative Office, and I am the project manager over the e-filing project, the statewide initiative that we are working with ImageSoft on.
And I'm Dave Leasure. I work for a company called ImageSoft, and I'm the product owner of TrueFiling, which has been sold to the state of Michigan to be used as their MyFile platform.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We're here to discuss the statewide e-filing initiative. So, Mary, why don't you start by kind of giving us a summary or an overview of that and what's entailed and you spoke about at the conference here?
Sure. So essentially, we started e-filing in Michigan back in 2007 when the Oakland Circuit Court approached the Michigan Supreme Court asking for permission to pilot an e-filing program. After Oakland, the additional courts approached the Michigan Supreme Court wanting to do the same. So at this juncture, we have 5 courts within the state that currently have an e-filing program. And really, we spent some time back in 2014 going through a request for information, which allowed us to gather more information about what the funding was going to be that was required, and went through the legislative activities required in order to collect that funding, enabled that funding, enacted that funding in 2016 so that we could begin the process. A request for proposal was issued back in August of 2016 in conjunction with Gartner Consulting, putting together all the requirements for the statewide system and working really in conjunction with the courts and with various stakeholders across the state. So certainly spent some time gathering all the details and determining what was going to be needed for the statewide program. Once we had published that request for proposal and we received responses, we again reached out to important stakeholders across the state to help us evaluate the proposals received and determine who was going to be the best vendor that would be able to meet the needs of our Michigan trial courts. And we ultimately determined that was going to be ImageSoft, and we signed a contract with ImageSoft on May 1st of 2017 and have continued to work very hard at really the first phase of our project, which is to take the 5 pilot courts that are currently e-filing today and convert them over to the statewide system. We see e-filing as providing multiple benefits. It will provide benefits to both the filers as well as the courts themselves. And for the filers, it really is going to provide an opportunity for them to file really from anywhere at any time. They'll also have the ability to have access to their documents, again, real-time access to those documents that they have filed or been served at any point in time. And for the courts, it gives instant access for them as well. And it really provides an opportunity for more efficient operations. So we see this as really a great move in the state of Michigan, bringing the courts, both the courts and the filers, to a new place on the technology front.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. I imagine it's going to take some time to implement it across the state. And a lot of education of attorneys and courts and judges.
Very much so, very much so. It is a very large, a very complex project. We've got over 240 courts that we're going to be implementing across the state. So Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a challenge. And one of the things that we're doing to kind of make this a little bit more manageable is to break it out in chunks.
Okay.
So instead of looking at it as my goodness, we have a major project, we've got to implement all these different courts, we're saying, okay, there's a few different phases that we'll be working through. So the first phase is really getting those pilot courts implemented, and we're working to get them implemented by the end of the year. In the meantime, we're also working on a development of a standard solution. And as we've already stated, this is a very complex, very large project that we're working on to implement all these courts. And while we recognize that all the courts operate a little bit differently across the state, in order to implement them in a timely fashion, we're going to have to develop a standard solution.
Yes.
So that it simplifies things.
Yes. I can imagine that might be a little challenging.
Yes. And the third and final phase is really expanding across the state.
Yes.
So getting
to
into the
every
trial
nook and
courts.
cranny, so to speak. Are there other states that have implemented e-filing at this level?
There are other states that have implemented e-filing and that continue to work towards implementing e-filing. One thing that was a decision that was made early on in the state of Michigan is in looking at other programs that states have implemented, we said, okay, in order to ensure the success of the program here, what we need to do is we need to implement not only e-filing, but we need behind the scenes a document management system that can be used by the courts. So essentially, once the filers submit those documents to the court, there's a way for those courts to take those documents and continue that electronic process by routing them through the document management system.
Absolutely. I can see how that would be necessary. And you work at the State Court Administrative Office, so I suppose that office is working on this with the courts in the state to change? Or
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So one thing that we've recognized with this project is that the State Court Administrative Office cannot make all these decisions on their own. So we have to be working with our various stakeholders. That includes the staff at the courts as well as the filers across the state. So that'll be the attorneys and also those various self-help centers that serve the pro se litigants.
Absolutely. It's very interesting, very huge undertaking, but fascinating. You can imagine when it's implemented, it will really streamline things significantly.
That is our goal.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, can you share with us your thoughts on this matter and what you've provided to the State Court Administrative Office?
Yeah, so ImageSoft's product TrueFiling has been used in 3 pilot courts already in the state of Michigan. It's Macomb, Grand Traverse, and Ottawa County. And, part of this whole project, it's been very exciting to get more input from all of our courts and, work with Wayne and Oakland as the other e-filing courts in Michigan just to, see what their processes all were so that we can kind of go in and, see all the areas where we could improve, and even in our own product, how we could help the filing community really with an easy process so they can file their documents so that they're not wasting time with extra steps, and we're really, getting them in and out as soon as they can while giving them all the information that they need at the same time.
Yes. And from the conversations that were had during the presentation, it sounds like you're continually involved in improving it as things are recognized.
Yeah, as part of the RFP process, the team took a look at our current system and the best areas where it could be improved. And we have a list of 6 enhancements that will be in place at the start of Wave 1 when Macomb and Wayne and Oakland go live with the MyFile system. And over the next 2 or 3 years, we have about 100 other really nice enhancements that we'll be able to provide the filing community. And as we go, even on top of those 100, we'll still be constantly looking at the system and seeing where we can improve it.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Well, some questions that I heard this morning in your presentation, I'd like to ask for our listeners to hear your answer. One of the questions was, will every court need to have a website to implement the e-filings?
The courts will not be required to have their own website. We do expect that the State Court Administrative Office website, the One Court of Justice website, will be a mechanism that can be used to communicate information to the filers across the state if those courts do not have their own website available.
Very good. Thank you.
And one nice thing about the MyFile application is that no matter what court you're going to be filing to, as long as the court is live on MyFile, there will be one centralized location that you can access, so the filing community doesn't have to search for the court's website to find where they have to file. They can just access the link that is shared throughout the state, and they can file to any of the courts that they need to file to. So it's one login, one password, less things they have to keep track of, and one centralized location to file documents anywhere.
So less complexity. They don't have to worry about that. That's been built into the system that you've designed. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Another question someone had was, if you filed these documents and they're in the cloud, would other people have access to them? I would like to hear that answer for our listeners today, too.
Right. And as a part of the statewide e-filing initiative, it is not included in the scope to provide public access to documents across the state. So really the attorneys will have access to documents that they have filed and that they have been served as well, but it is not providing public access across the state as a part of this program.
So that is a secure situation, and people don't have to worry about that.
Correct.
Well, excellent. Well, it looks like we've reached the end of our program. I want to thank Mary and Dave for joining us today. If our listeners have questions or wish to follow up with you, how can they reach you? I'll ask Mary first.
We actually have an email address that can be utilized for any questions that you have regarding the e-filing program. That email address is efiling@courts.mi.gov.
Thank you. And Dave?
And from my side, I'm sure our filing community is going to have questions about the application. They're going to want to know what it can do. We always have support available for the application. You can contact support@truefiling.com, and you can really ask us any questions about the application that you want. And even when we go live with all these courts, if you have questions about how to use it, how to sign up, anything that you need, you can really reach out to us, and we'll be available for you.
Thank you. This has been another edition of the State Bar of Michigan On Balance podcast. I'm Tish Vincent. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the State Bar of Michigan On Balance podcast, brought to you by the State Bar of Michigan and produced by the broadcast professionals at Legal Talk Network. If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via Apple Podcasts and RSS. Find the State Bar of Michigan and Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Or download Legal Talk Network's free app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by Legal Talk Network or the State Bar of Michigan, or their respective officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.